Expiated Music presents Apologizing with My Actions, a short story audiobook by Will Duckworth, read by Erica. Evan leaned against the kitchen counter, the late afternoon sun filtering through the blinds, casting slatted shadows across the linoleum. His guitar rested on his knee, strings still humming faintly from the last chord of the song he'd been piecing together, an apology woven into melody, each lyric a confession of his failures. His wife, Lena, wasn't home yet. She'd be back soon from her shift at the hospital, her scrubs wrinkled, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but still bright with that quiet strength he'd always admired. The song was for her, but he hadn't worked up the nerve to sing it yet, not until he could prove it wasn't just words. It had all come crashing down 3 nights ago, in the middle of what should have been a mundane Tuesday. Lena had come home late, her shoulders slumped, her usual warmth dimmed. She'd tried to talk to him about a tough day. A patient she'd grown close to had passed, and the weight of it clung to her like damp cloth. Evan, though, was sprawled on the couch, half watching a game, half scrolling through his phone, barely registering her words. "That's rough, babe," he'd muttered, eyes flicking back to his screen. She'd stood there waiting, her silence louder than any argument. Then she'd walked away, the bedroom door clicking shut behind her. That click, it echoed in his head now. It wasn't just a door closing, it was a warning. He'd ignored it, like he'd ignored so many things. The dishes piling up because he forgot his turn, the clothes he left strewn across the bedroom floor, the way he'd brush off her texts with one-word replies, or leave them unread entirely. He'd always told himself it wasn't a big deal. Lena was patient, forgiving, too forgiving maybe. She'd laugh off his messiness, tease him about his selective hearing, but lately her laughter had thinned, her teasing edged with something sharper. The real wake-up call came not from Lena, but from his brother Mark, over beers at a dive bar the next evening. Evan had been venting, half joking about how Lena was overreacting to his distractions, how she didn't get that he was just unwinding. Mark, usually the laid-back one, set his bottle down hard enough to make the table shake. "Man, you're screwing this up," he said, voice low but cutting. "You think she's gonna keep putting up with you acting like she's background noise? I've seen guys like you, good guys but clueless, lose everything because they didn't notice their wife was drowning while they were busy with their own crap." Mark's words hit like a punch. Evan thought of his parents' divorce, how his dad's indifference, small things piling up, had driven his mom away. He'd sworn he'd never be that guy, but here he was, repeating the same mistakes. He saw Lena in his mind, not the glowing, carefree woman he'd married 5 years ago, but the one who'd stood in the kitchen. Last night, her hazel eyes glistening with unshed tears, her voice barely above a whisper, "I just want to feel like I matter to you, Evan." He'd brushed it off then, mumbling something about being tired, but now, her words clawed at him. He'd gone home that night and really looked at their life. The laundry basket overflowed because he'd meant to help but never did. Her texts, thoughtful, asking about his day or sharing a funny story, sat unanswered in his phone. He'd been so caught up in his own world, his job at the auto shop, his music gigs on weekends, that he'd stopped seeing her. Not just her needs, but her. Lena, who'd stayed up with him during his mom's cancer scare, who'd danced with him in their tiny apartment to scratchy vinyl records, who'd believed in his music even when he doubted himself. She deserved better than a husband who acted like she was an afterthought. The epiphany wasn't just guilt. It was fear. Fear that he was pushing her away, that one day she'd stop waiting for him to show up. Real-life stories echoed in his head. Friends who'd let their marriages crumble over little things. Co-workers who'd come home to empty houses because they didn't listen until it was too late. He'd read posts on X about men realizing too late they'd neglected their partners, their regret raw and haunting. He didn't want to be another cautionary tale. So, he started small. Yesterday, he'd done the dishes without being asked, folded the laundry, left a note on her coffee mug, "You're my everything. I'm gonna do better." He'd replied to her text, a simple "How's your day going?" with a real answer, asking about her patient, her feelings. When she'd come home, he'd turned off the TV, looked her in the eyes and listened. Really listened. Her surprise, the way her face softened, was both a gift and a gut check. Now, with his guitar in hand, he was turning his resolve into music. The song wasn't just an apology, it was a promise. He'd sing it to her tonight, after he'd cleared the clutter from the bedroom, after he'd cooked her favorite pasta dish. He'd sing it not to fix everything in one go, but to show her he was trying, really trying, to be the man she deserved.